Thank you, Chair. I'm slightly puzzled about having to look at London's role as an international city and visiting other countries being seen as a potential for budget saving. I mean, the previous incumbent of your position, as you've already mentioned, was very fond of overseas travel. And I believe his trips didn't lead to as many positive outcomes for Londoners, well, as we've already heard today, maybe for himself personally. But your first overseas trip after you were elected in 2016 was to India, and you reopened offices in Mumbai and Delhi, closed by the previous mayor, Boris Johnson, showing a stark contrast to the Tory small island mentality. Now, when you released figures in 2023, India overtook the USA as the country with the most foreign direct investments in the UK, in London. Are you expecting a similar boost based on your visit to Africa?
Well, I think the big advantage we have with India is that this Prime Minister has also managed to do what the previous government couldn't do, was organise a trade deal with India, which is really important. And you think about the contribution made not just by the Indian diaspora to our country, but foreign direct investment. It's just huge, really important to build upon. Not just our previous visit and our offices in India, which if we followed the advice of the Conservative Party, we'd close down again. But see what benefit that comes from those links to London from India. In terms of Africa, it's really important to recognise these fast cities that are dynamic, Lagos, Accra, Cape Town, a huge amount of energy. The tech sector's flourishing and thriving, and already some of the news we've had is incredibly encouraging in terms of progress made from the trip. And that's just a few months afterwards in relation to agreements reached with leading African fintech unicorns, 10 high-growth startups, having seed future collaborations, attracting investment, new market pathways, a signed partnership agreement with 3 companies in Nigeria, partnership with service banks in Africa, a reseller agreement on the continent, and I could go on. And that's just a few months after after the trip, and we'll have more fruits flourishing in months to come. And he's right, by the way, to remind ourselves of the consequence of a small island mentality in terms of lack of ambition. The GLA shouldn't be about parish politics. It should be about selling our city, promoting our city, advocating for our city, rather than, as these guys do, talk our city down.
Assembly Member Boff.
Just because of the direction of the debate, I should declare an interest as Chair of Africa House London, which does organise trade missions and investment in London.
Thank you for that. Any other points on this? Can I just tell you, we're still on question 1. I think we've been very creative in the way that we've answered questions. Is there any more? Assembly Member Best.
Thank you, Chair. Any savings that you're going to have to make in this budget will be driven, of course, by the government budget. Rachel Reeves has been quoted as floating plans for a pay-per-mile scheme. 2 years ago in this very session in Mayor's Question Time, you said twice to me, as long as I am Mayor, there will be no pay-per-mile scheme. Can I just check that you have made that representation to the Chancellor on this?
Can I give a reassurance, because it's a really important point she raises about what the Mayor should do, irrespective of the colour of the government, whether it's Labour or Conservative. And I'm sure she'll, at least give me some credit for standing up to the previous government when it came to the previous government trying to force me to remove concessionary fares for children and pensioners. I will stand up to this government as well if they try to introduce paper mile in London. Can I give you that reassurance?
Thank you. Can I check that you have made that representation, though? Have you written to the Chancellor? Have you spoken with her about this? Because obviously it might be too late once the announcement is made. We need to be making that representation before.
No, because I've had no representations from the government that they're intending to do this. And if they did announce this, hypothetically speaking, I'm sure there'd be a consultation process and I'd respond in due course on that.
Thanks. Can I check what you have written to the government asking for ahead of this?
Chair, I'm more than happy to just check with the office and make public our written representations, because I normally do, and I don't see any reason why I wouldn't this time. But I've made written representations, and I'm more than happy to share that. I don't see why I wouldn't.
Thank you.
OK, let's move on to question 2 in the name of Assembly Member Irani.
Can I thank the member for his question? The government's facing an extremely difficult economic situation and a heavy strain on public finances following 14 years of the previous government's mismanagement of the economy, which included the catastrophic Liz Truss budget and the damage caused by a disastrous Brexit deal. The legacy left behind by the previous government could not be clearer. Soaring inflation, a cost of living crisis, a flatlining economy, stymied investment and a black hole in public finances. As a result, I appreciate that the Chancellor will have to make some tough decisions in her budget next week, including the need to stabilise the nation's growing debt while protecting public services and supporting the most vulnerable communities at the same time as stimulating the growth we need to see nationwide. As I've said many times in this chamber, when London succeeds, the whole country succeeds. Fortunately, unlike the previous government, this government recognises London's central role in driving national growth and the financial contribution we make to the Treasury of £43 billion each year. Since the general election, it has backed a series of transformative projects in the capital, including £322 million for house building through the City Hall Developer Investment Fund, support for an Oxford Street Mayoral Development Corporation paving the way for pedestrianisation and revitalisation of one of the most iconic streets in the country, granting the largest multi-year funding settlement for TfL in over a decade, with £2 billion secured until 2030, and agreeing a package of emergency housing reforms and more further planning powers so that we can accelerate development and tackle London's acute housing shortage. These commitments demonstrate a clear shift. London is once again being empowered to deliver growth, homes and infrastructure for the future. I'm committed to using my position as Mayor to advocate for the investment and powers this city needs, but I'm not complacent, and I'll continue to advocate for the investment and powers London needs. This includes building vital transport infrastructure projects like the DLR extension to Thamesmead to unlock housing and growth. We've heard the good news on this morning, and additional funding for London's emergency services. I'll continue to work with and to lobby partners in government so that we can continue delivering for our capital.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we on this side, on the Labour side, do agree and welcome the announcement on the DLR extension to Thamesmead, and we don't, unlike the others, believe that the West London Orbital and Bakerloo Line extensions are completely dead in the water. London, as you alluded, is the engine of the UK economy, and we need the Chancellor to help us continue that growth. And one of those examples that we could be looking at is a tourism levy. Should the Chancellor give London the power to raise a levy on tourists as other cities do around the world?
Well, it's one of the things I've been lobbying for in addition to the DLR extension from the government. I mean, any of us who goes to any major city across the globe, and indeed to Edinburgh as well, very shortly, will see that when we pay a hotel bill, we pay a very small percentage, so a couple of quid, which helps that city do a number of things otherwise won't be able to do. As a consequence, some other global cities are, we're in danger of them accelerating ahead of us in terms of what they can do in terms of improving public realm, improving tourist experience and so forth. So I'm lobbying the government quite about the importance of this. I think it's very important, particularly in the context of us losing money that we previously received from the European Union. We were told it going to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and that's now almost come to zero. That's why it's important to replace that and to get growth in our city as well as support for tourists.
Thank you. And you mentioned funding for emergency service. Now, the government has increased, since it came into power, funding for the Metropolitan Police, but it still does not cover the police's central London obligations, particularly around, if you're looking at the cost of policing protests, for example, over the last few years. Should the government fully reimburse London for the extra policing costs our capital city faces?
Well, he'll be aware, because we are an international capital city, in addition to the normal police functions that the police have, and they have the same across the country, the police also deal with issues around protest, ceremonial issues, diplomatic visits, state visits, sporting events, cultural events, festivals, and so forth. And that provides an additional burden on the police service. Governments have recognised this, of different political persuasions, and have given an additional top-up called the National and International Capital Cities Grant Money. According to the Home Office, there's a shortfall of how much money we received for that, to the tune of £240 million. Now, this government, for the first time in 10 years, gave us an increase of 30%, around £63 million. We need an additional increase if we're going to fill that delta, but also avoid what he sees in his patch, abstractions, where his enabled teams are having to be pulled out of police in Bretton and Harrow because they've been required in the centre of our city. That can't be right.